Welcome back to part two, the revised part two. So in this part, we will start with the cutting out now. Um, it'll be different, I suppose, than the process. I'm trying to remember which parts were in which videos, but it doesn't really matter now at this stage, I suppose. So we'll probably just do the door cutouts, the arches above, cut out for the parapet wall and everything, and yeah, we'll start with that anyway. Get going. I think that I made the doors and these firing slits or firing slots in part three, but it doesn't matter too much. I'll probably make them here in this as well. So we'll get going anyway. And the first thing to do would be to cut out the doors. So we have this piece here from earlier on that was saved at the start, and I'll just move that globally and just made sure earlier. Remember, move that across so that it lined up then, and then this will be a reference for the mirror and weld. And I just want to make sure that, let me see where we going here. So I'll probably bring it down a bit, just scale it down. It just needs to basically come inside this, the inner one, and then cover the top, as long as it's covered by that trim. And then it's just a matter of deciding on the depth. So I'm just looking at the way this is angled. See how deep that is. That's maybe too deep. See the way I need to go up again here, because the back's not covering that because of the way it's on the slope, lower at the back. So let's see, I'll try that anyway, maybe just a little bit deeper. Boolean tool, close down. Sorry, that's not the Boolean tool. Boolean tool, did I switch those around? No, that's where it's supposed to be. The blue will be this, and then the pink will be this, and subtract. And let me see, where is that third part coming from? Sorry, yeah, the back wasn't wide enough to cover that. Let me just have a look at that and see why that was. That's unusual. Is this at some sort of a funny angle? No. I wonder why that didn't do that. That didn't cover that. Let me try that again, actually. Pick the blue. Pick the pink. So that's actually our... What is that? I think that's an extra one that's... I don't know. Is that an extra one that's in there? Yeah, that must have been duplicated by mistake. Sometimes that can happen when you, as I said, you can't really see exactly what you have selected. So yeah, not to worry about that. So that's fine, except it's too deep. So I'm going to go back and do that again. And I think in the other videos, I definitely called for some sort of a live boolean to avoid things like this. Oh, sorry, my mistake. So usually, or sometimes, not usually, you just have to reset this boolean tool by just picking from the name entry field here and subtract, and that looks a bit better. Excuse me. If you hear any funny chewing noises, maybe I can't remember which video I said this in the last recordings. Maybe I already mentioned it at the start of part one, but I'm chewing Nicorette chewing gums here all the while because I'm trying to cut down on my cigarette intake. Right, so yeah, that's good. I'm happy with that, the depth. One other mistake I made, just in case, is before I do that, is I want to select this and clone in place, move that back, just in case, you never know. So it's always a good idea to keep your booleans around. And we have our blue, pink, subtract, and get rid of that weird piece. And that is pretty much that. So we can mirror weld that now that we're happy. See, that was that was exactly what I was saying. Keep that boolean piece around because we obviously need it for here. So back to this again, and same again. Clone in place, bring it over, and then we just have to. You just have to. I'm trying to get used to this yet. Let go of that one. I just have to position it again. But as I say, it doesn't really matter because doesn't have to be exact because it's covered by the trim. It's just the depth. It'll be tidied up by the trim. So let me see that. How good is that? And so I get used to this. Keep using that menu. The pink, subtract, and that is too deep. So I'll just bring that out a bit, up a bit. That's not. Let me see. About that much. And you just have to, as I said before, reset that boolean tool sometimes. Yeah, that looks pretty good there, yeah. And maybe move that building in. That's no big deal. It's just that's coming out a bit too far there, but you see it here as well. It doesn't matter. That'll all be sorted out later on. So now we'll do our X and Y. Mirror and weld. X and Y, mirror and weld. Or sorry, X and Z. Mirror and weld. And that is good. Right. So that's that. Now I want to create these. So the cutouts for over on the top there over the doors. So they're half circles, but not exactly. They're kind of extended half circles. So I think I showed this. No, what video? There's a different video. Oh, no, I don't think I showed it in any video. But I have a. Let me see. Yeah, I have a piece I already made. Whereas this piece here. So that's just like a very common shape, in 3D modeling, but there's no way to make that with the primitives. I thought that you'd be able to just set this to 100 and then set this to 100 there and then extend it out the cube, but you can't do it. So quick way to do that is just to create a cylinder. Scene origin, move it out, and then I will actually create it with more res. Create object. I'll just put that density up. It doesn't really matter where to create it. Scene view. Move it over here. Then a quick way to do this is with the move tool. Maybe I used it loads in the other videos, but I can't even remember now if I've showed this before. Probably not. As I said, I'm still confused with what I deleted and what I didn't. What content I already recorded and what I'm talking about again and blah blah blah. So enough of all that. Switch over to the square. Switch to default. Turn off the fall off. Put it down to 1%. Snapping on. Line constraint on. Turn off the gizmo. And now if we go halfway about, you'll be able to just drag that out. And it's pretty much as simple as that. So this is very handy, this tool here, for doing those kind of movements. You can use the line constraint. Line constraint. And then you can also restrict the axis here as well for snapping. If it's turning in funny angles, I usually set it to 90 when I'm doing things like this, so it doesn't keep going all over the place. So that's very handy to move tool like that. When you put the line constraint on, put it to the default brush, turn off the elastic, and set the fall off all the way down. And it's really handy for certain types of movements like this, where if you want to Like if you non-uniformly scale this, you're going to lose this perfect half circle. So you use this to extend it. It's something you used to do. You were kind of forced to do it in Substance Modeler because you didn't have any other way to do it. So it actually works very well here as well. And I suppose part of all this as well, it's people say, oh, why don't you just poly model this? I'm sure there'll be somebody, if anyone even watches these videos, but people will always think that they used to say the same to me. Whatever Substance Modeler, or even using Z Modeler years ago in ZBrush, and basically, the bottom line is that you cannot beat navigation in VR. It's just you just have to experience it. It's just unbelievable. You can go anywhere. You can go right inside. You can make yourself absolutely infinitely small, tiny. You make yourself, infinitely large, so you're flying up in an airplane in relation to your piece, and you can just do all that within seconds. Look, you can just go anywhere and say, okay, right, I want to go to that corner of the building, and then you're just there in a couple of seconds. Okay, I want to go to the eye of the Space Marine, so then you just go there and you're at the eye of the Space Marine. If you're doing that in the desktop, it's just a pain in the arse navigating in the desktop. When you get used to VR navigation, it's just, especially now that they added momentum, another one of my requests, you can just go anywhere you want within a split second. Like, okay, I need to go in here to this bolt, bump, right, I need to go back up here, and you're just there sculpting on the ear, and then you can just flick in between, ready to sculpt. It's just so fast. It's just so fast. It's unbeatable. Right, so with that aside, we continue on, and we were making this, so I'll just get that roughly into place. Okay, what's even selected here? So this selected, and I want to just reset the rotation, square it up, rotate, snap, scale it down. And from testing from doing the last one, I know that I don't want to angle this back. I'm going to keep this, it looks better when it gives you that taper on the recess. So there was one for the one over the door, and then that one there in the middle. So I will actually scale this up, and I just want to get an idea of what it's going to look like. So I'll just copy that, maybe to there, just to get an idea. So they're quite close together. So yeah, I can see that I need to move that over a bit more. Move that over about there. Move that one over. I'm just laying these in rough part of the block out, so that I can just get an idea just before I commit to the boolean, and then we'll be able to move these out. Just maybe it looks to be, as I said before, it's maybe a third in, maybe a quarter in either side. They don't have to be, it doesn't have to be exactly the same, but what I might do is, I think I'll scale these out to be a bit wider, bring it down a bit, so it's about 2/3 of the way up, and that should be pretty good. That should be pretty good there. Yeah, I can just get rid of these lads, get the old carve tool out, and turn on the snapping just for, sometimes that doesn't, this thumbstick is supposed to, if I hold it down and push in and out, it's supposed to stretch that in and out, but it doesn't. Sometimes it just doesn't seem to be working. So not to worry, I'll just make this huge, just trim that off at the bottom so it doesn't affect below here, and are we happy? And I just made that, as you see, higher res, just so the boolean doesn't have all facets on it. And one more time before we commit to the boolean, I'm just going to rough it out here. So we'd say there, there, roughly. And yeah, that looks pretty good. So get rid of these bios, and then I'll join these together. Sorry, I didn't select that second one. Join these together, and back to the Boolean. Blue, pink, subtract, too deep. So select that, bring it out a bit, and then you have to reselect that Boolean again, and then you have to reset it here again. It's a bit sort of a bit funky the way it works, but it works. If that happens, yeah, just usually just in these entry name fields, I think I mentioned earlier on, you just reset this, select it again, select, and yeah, that's pretty good, I think. Grab the carve tool, chop the top of that off, and yeah, you guessed it, I made that same mistake again. My own advice wasn't heeded. Always, especially here to say with no live Boolean, not non-destructive, always what am I doing here, clone, always save copies of your Boolean operands, just to make life easier. So back to our carve tool, get rid of this lad, and put this in place. I don't have to do this, but just out of habit, I suppose, I'm going to just reset the origin there. Now, the thing about this one was, because that's so far away, you can see here the distance between this. As we said earlier, mine seems to be a lot wider than that one up there, but in this case, I would just probably maybe make these a bit wider on this side, and have a look then, see what that's like. It's way wider. So I suppose you could make it 3, but maybe you could change the design and see what it looks like. I'll just go back to before that was scale, keep it the same size as the other ones, put one in the middle, and then see, it won't be, I could keep that spacing the same, but then it won't be centered over the doors, which is not a huge deal. Maybe it looks better like that. Or maybe just leave it. Maybe just leave it. I'm not mad about that now, I have to say. It doesn't really looks a bit too wide in the middle. Yeah, so maybe this is just this is all probably too wide, but sometimes you're not going to translate your references obviously exactly. They're just references to kind of either give you inspiration, or I'm not trying to make an exact copy of this, but just for the sake of the video, I suppose. It's usually when I'm using refs, I'm never just copying something one to one, unless I've been given refs as part of a job or whatever. But if I'm just doing stuff for myself, it's more like inspiration. You're taking ideas from here and there, and then you're not looking for it to be exactly the same. But in this case, I do like the way that's resolved there. It looks pretty cool, more compact. Ours is obviously too wide, but maybe if I just go with this idea. Yeah, I think I'll go with that, just stretched out a bit more. And yeah, I think that's what I'll do. I'll go with that. So delete that one, keep that one there, see how deep it is. And I'll just do this first. I'll Boolean this first. So, and this time I'm not going to copy out the operands because I definitely don't need them for anything else. And then if I need that shape, I have one here saved in the stamp library. So subtract and select the boolean again, pink, subtract, I go a bit more with the depth, just a little bit more with the depth, select that boolean again, pink, no, I have to reset it, either reset on the box or just go to select, select object, switch from select and then back to boolean, and it does the same thing. Right, well that looks a bit better there now. Yeah, I think that looks fine there. Yeah, that looks fine. So I'll trim this again, stamp, and now we can do our we want it on X and Z, and no, that's not what I want to do. I was supposed to leave that boolean off, so leave that X and Z, then boolean this, and then do, no, that wasn't supposed to be X and Z. Yeah, sorry, X, Z, then boolean this, and then just do X on its own. Going back the, why is that, I don't know, why is that selected? Weird. Actually, I don't know what happened there. So flip that over on the X, and then I'll just do the Z as well, because that would have been flipped the other way, so I have to do them individually. Flip, and yeah, that's pretty good. Turn off that wireframe, see what it looks like. I thought I already did that. Oh yeah, I think I undid. I'm looking at that again. I don't really, I suppose. I don't know now if I prefer having 3 there, but as I said, if you have 3, these won't be centered on the over the doors. It's not really centered over the door anyway. So I think, yeah, and look, because it's destructive stuff here, we're only a couple of steps away there with the undo, and it only takes a couple of seconds to redo it. So I'm not too panicked about that type of thing. I'm generally sort of, I suppose, not a destructive modeler, but I don't like to. I like to keep going and decide on things. Say, right, I don't want to have to like keep everything. Keep saving loads of different files so I can go back and change something. Like I like to sort of, I kind of know by looking at something if I like it. Like there straight away, I say, I did it, and I looked at it and said, nah, I don't really like. I tried a few different methods, and now looking at it again, I'll probably go with the 3 because I want to keep these the same rather than having that stretched out. So I go back to just before that and get rid of this and just clone that out again. It only takes a couple of seconds, I'm talking through this as well, so it obviously takes longer. I never really shut up talking, I suppose, but it'd be weird, I think, if I didn't talk. It'd be way weirder. And as I said, out of habit, move that back into place, and this time I will do this. I'll just do these by hand this time. Get the depth maybe to there, and get that centered up more or less. Clone in place. Actually, it actually works out way better now because it sort of is. It's centered up over the window more than it was the other time. So yeah, that's after working out actually better than I would have expected. So boolean, don't need a copy of the operand. Subtract, and then we'll do our mirror and weld on X and Z. I think it worked this time. No, it's the other way, I think. We'll just do it one at a time. So we'll just do X across this way. Okay, that happened to me when I was recording the other video. All of a sudden this is not working, look. Why was that? Oh, that was going across global. Not sure what happened there. But anyway, that's fine there now. Turn on Z. Good. And now back to the Boolean tool. Pink. I could have joined them, it doesn't matter. Back to the Boolean tool again. Select Boolean. Blue, pink. Join. No, not join. Back to the Boolean again. No, oh yeah. Select the blue. This is the blue. This is the pink. Subtract. Why does that? I don't know what this is here. Why does that keep getting selected? Weird. Not to worry. Right. So now I'll mirror and weld this across the Z. Z and X. See if it works. No. So we need to turn off X because they're going the opposite way. And now go across X going the other way. And yeah, that looks way better, in my opinion. Right, so select. Just notice that this needs to be mirror and welded as well. And also this. So carve. This we need to mirror and weld. Global. Across the Z. That's global. So yeah, that's good. X. And also this lad here. Same again. Z. And I think that, yeah, this, I think actually this, yeah, it looks better than the other one that I did that I brought to a finish. Some of the little extra details. I think this worked out well, and then with the 3 windows, in my opinion, anyway. So the next move now, I suppose, is that's pretty much all the modeling done. The main structure. So what's left is I ended up creating some sort of spikes in the final version, and I created them in the last video, so I'll just leave that because that'll be shown in the last video. So it's basically just in part 3, I think I was doing the door and these slots. So I will do that. Yeah, I'll do the door now. Yeah, I'll do the door. So I might as well just model it in place. I can always just bring this over a bit. It's not exactly, it's quite simple, so it doesn't really matter too much. I will select this. Yeah, these are all reset. And just pop it in here somewhere, and then we can just adjust it. Let me see now, as I got the, as I said earlier, yeah, it's all obviously getting 3D printed, so turn off this snapping so we can just sort of make it thicker than it needs to be and just bury it, then penetrate it in so it all goes watertight. I remember doing the door, actually. This was one of the parts that where I really started to notice how hard it is to see. Look, you can't see what's happening there. Like, it's just not having AO is just a bit of a real pain. So that looks good for the height, maybe there up as far as it goes. I can take these corners off as well, and maybe go a bit more. That looks good. A bit of ground clearance. This ground will all get piled up with rubble and be uneven and all the rest of the show in the last video. So I'll leave that there. And yeah, so what I want to do for this is I'm going to create a sort of a round, like in the picture here, like a round trim around it. So I can do that quite easily with just with cylinders. And I'll use the door. Actually, I might just isolate this to make it a bit easier to see now that we know it's the right size. So create, and I'll select one of these and maybe give it a bit of a radius. maybe there, create it on selection, and just snap it to 90. I don't think that worked. Oh, it did, yeah. Right, so now we're on the surface, so I want to switch to local, and that will be snapped onto the surface. Scale it down. And it depends. I changed the radius there because I wanted a bit of a wider radius on the corner here. So what I'm going to do is just grab the carve tool. I wonder if it's working again. No, I don't know that's really strange. Why is that happening? I'll just reset these. So see, it's working now. So maybe, I don't know, it's maybe some sort of a bug or something, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Turn the snapping back on again, and that'll be snapped to the local, and just kind of chop it here around the halfway mark, and then we'll just use our setup and ready to go here. So we can just use this trick. Right, snapping is on and line constraint is off. So weird. Oh yeah, sorry, the line's going the wrong way. Why is the line arrow going the other way? Right, so we'll just drag that out past the halfway mark. Make sure the line's facing the right way, and drag this down just past halfway. Like I said, that doesn't matter because this will probably get voxel remesh and smooth out. And now our handy trick of I'm going to switch this to custom and select our door, and going back that way, apply, and then Y and apply. That gives our door. Turn on symmetry here on the X and Z. Sorry, X, Y. No, is that X? Sorry, X is turned off. No, that's not X. Sorry, I meant Z and Y. Y and Z. And here, as you can see now, we can turn that to 45. Just give that a bit of a trim. And that is the frame of the door done. And I'll just, isolate. Yeah, I don't need to bring the ref back. It's just going to be two bars here. So what I can do here is make sure the door is selected. And then I want to add on a round little bit of a bevel there. What size is that going to be? A little bit of a bevel, maybe that size for the straps here, for the hinge straps. And I'll go to, sorry, my mistake. I was on the stamp tool there, and I should have been on the create tool. So let's see what that's like. That's good. And I can just turn off symmetry and just put it into place here wherever I want it. And as I said as well, it doesn't matter, you're going to be penetrating this into the surface for the print, and bring it to quite close to the edge. Just bring it out and scale it here first. You can use that move. Actually, perfect example of why as well. Using that move tool. I'll turn on this the wireframe just so it's a bit easier to see. So yeah, obviously if I scale this, turn that off. If I scale this, you're going to scale out the bevel. So I will grab that move tool again. And you can see here what I meant about the snapping. Snapping all over the place. So you can either restrict the axis or just turn it on to 90. And then I'll just drag that here, leave a little gap where the hinge is going to be, the hinge. And turn around. Drag that to wherever you like. And maybe it is maybe too thick. This doesn't matter. See here where the geometry is colliding. Z fighting. It doesn't matter because I'm going to be voxel remeshing this. So that is good. Bring that down to the bottom, and then I'll bring another one up, and I'll use that for the door, for the play for the handle. Same again. Then we'll use this handy trick. Maybe that's good enough there. And for the handle, I'll just use a similar to what I did here. Go to create, and maybe leave that radius. And that would be pretty good. I'm sure you know what's coming here. Stamp. There and there. Move. Drag that down. Move again. Drag it in there. Could have went higher res than that, but to be honest, like this doesn't matter at all, because same thing. I can't even remember like what video I was saying what. A fear of repeating myself. But the likes of this, see, you say, oh, that's really messy. You know, if I was doing poly modeling, I wouldn't do it like that. Blah blah blah. Make sure this vert is perfect and the topology, there was no triangles and blah blah blah. But it doesn't matter. This is for print, so these just get joined together. Joined together, and then just voxel remesh, smooth, and then done. So what have we got here? 2,000, 60,000. And just smooth that out. It's supposed to be a rough piece of metal. So sorry, you want to turn off that line constraint. So you know it's not going to be perfect. Welded onto the door or whatever. I can't really see what's going on there. And yeah, so that's fine. You know what I mean? It's going to be kind of rough. Plus, it's going to be this size is going to be tiny, and incidentally, along those lines, just a marine lad here. So this is a good point to bring up as well. Like this, you might think, oh yeah, okay, that looks fine. But then when you print it out, it might be only 0.5 millimeter, and it might even fail on the print or break when you take the supports off. So for something like this, generally now, this is for me. This is how it works out for me. But everyone won't be the same. The way I design these minis, for a 32mm mini, which means 32 is from the base, so the bottom of his feet to the eye line. That's the 32mm. And the way it works out my proportions. So for instance, this fella here, his eye will be 0.7mm. So if I bring this over here, you can see that it is weird. I'll just get out of scene mode so that doesn't happen. What am I doing here? Sorry, you can't grab in scene mode unless you use this down here when you're in object mode. So that's it's pretty much exactly the same size as the diameter of the eye, which is about 0.7mm. So the handle's only 0.7mm. So that's not even really big enough to print on its own. It is, like, with modern printers it will, but it's going to be absolutely like tiny. So we don't have a global inflate. Another request that I'll definitely have in Shapelab, just a global inflate, or what's it called? Like not extrude, but extrude along normals if you're extruding. But for instance, in ZBrush, it's either the inflate from the deformation palette, or you can use the gizmo control on the gizmo with the scale, and that'll just do a inflate along normals. So something like that, that's what I'm talking about. So because we don't have that here, you can just use the inflate brush, just a huge big size, and just you can catch it all then. And like, you might be thinking, oh Jesus, that looks absolutely ridiculous. It actually doesn't. when you print it out. Like, it's just something you have to get used to if you're printing for a small scale. So many people, when I first started, I came from modeling whatever other stuff for animation, for games, that type of thing. When I first went into modeling for print miniatures and whatever and collectibles, it took me a while, a lot of trial and error. You kind of have to work it out yourself and test prints and see what worked, see what didn't work. And then I was lucky enough to, I was working with Modifius on the Fallout Wasteland series for the board game, and I got some fantastic, um, pretty much training there on what they expected in miniatures, 32mm or 28mm miniatures for production, like for casting and molding. And it really helped me to understand how to model for print, and scales and what will come out, what won't. And it's a lot more strict even for casting, because with printing you're just going to print it out, but with casting and molding, the mold, you might have to print or mold and cast hundreds from the same, so the details have to hold up between each cast. So anyway, with that out of the way, like this, as I say, it looks pretty ridiculous. You have to just overcome that. We're not modeling here for games or whatever. So a lot of the time you see people anyway that come into it, they say, oh yeah, there's money to be made. I'll start sculpting miniatures and selling them. But then you can see that, you look at that, they're sculpting for the renders, and the proportions are still what they would have been sculpting for games or whatever. And they say, oh look, the render looks fantastic, but you look at the render and you say none of that detail is going to print. You just won't see it. You won't be able to paint it. And it's not until, like, we're working here really close and everything looks big and chunky, but then when you print something out, it's tiny. It's absolutely tiny. And especially then when you're painting stuff as well, if you've all these tiny little details that that are only 0.2 mil and everything, and they don't have any contrast, or they don't really stand out from the detail beside it, just becomes a blur, a mush in the print. So it's just something definitely to keep in mind for printing to different scales. So yeah, that's it. And you also, when you do your own supports, you really get to see, like, your support might be only 0.22 millimeters, and then you put the support on, but it looks huge on the model, but it isn't. It's only 0.222 millimeters or whatever happens to be. Right, so, and in that same vein, another good rule of thumb, I'm going to put rivets on that door now. And as I said, this is 0.7. So usually for rivets, like you can see, these rivets are quite big, nearly the same size as the eye, but the smaller ones, they're probably 0.4, and that would be nearly 0.3, 0.4 would be the minimum that will show up well in print. So that's why I would just do the same thing. You have the scale reference here, and I will create a sphere, scale it down, probably drop the subdivision down a bit as well, and maybe, so that's probably maybe 0.4. So I'm going to scale them with the zoom, and I forgot about that. So okay, that's about 0.4, so we'll create that. I've actually been moving him there because he was in scene mode. Do that again. When you're in scene mode, you just have to watch out for that, so that you can actually move with the side trigger if you're over a model. It doesn't happen though, and I don't actually like it. So we'll switch back. So you're moving the scene now rather than the model, because I'm in sculpt mode. So I'm gonna grab that and just scale out away from him. Back over here, and you can see even now it looks pretty tiny. So if that's 0.48, so 12, so that's over a mil, we'll say now, or thereabouts. So that's good enough to print. And you could even probably just bring these up a little bit more. And leave them for up there. And if I zoom out, you see, like, they read pretty good even from a distance. You can still see them from here. So that's always a good idea, to zoom out to whatever size for print it's going to be. So yeah, that's good. I'm happy with the size. And then now you can see what I was talking about. See this? I can't see the edges. I have to turn to the side. So hopefully they sort that out with some AO. And make sure I'm not selecting that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2. Back over here. 3, 4. And you might be wondering, like, in 3D, I was talking about all the perfect straight edges and the CG look and everything. Doing these by hand, it's that extra handmade feel about VR that I love as well. Like, in a normal 3D pack, you say, okay, right, I'll put one here, and then I'll do an array, and they're all perfectly spaced between each other, and they're all at the exact same depth, and, it's not realistic, even if the best tradesman in the world is putting all these rivets in, they're not all going to be exactly the same distance apart and exactly the same depth. Like, there's going to be variation, even if it's only slight variation, and that slight variation kind of adds to whatever you're modeling, that handmade feel. And this is the 40k universe as well, so more than likely it was done by slave labor. But and that's why as well I'm not just grabbing all these, copying them, bringing them down, because then they look exactly the same. And because it takes me, a couple of seconds to do it here in VR. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe that's a bit too slave labory, so might move them up, but they're not going to be perfect. They're not going to be the same depth, not going to be the same distance, same line. And you mightn't think you notice it, but you do. It adds to the variation. So that is our door, and I will also, I think, maybe grab. I'm going to add on some sort of hinge on the side here. So we could just grab this maybe. Oh no, it's just as quick to create a cylinder and just bang one in there, like, and then move it into place. Maybe scale it down a bit. Move it into place. Grab one for the bottom, just to give a little bit more visual interest, and for painting, just to make a bit more sense then as well. And then I can just, I suppose, clone in place, and let me see. I'll use the move again. If that's still set up, I have to turn these back on. Line constraint. Turn the line around. Okay, hang on the line. Let's keep flicking around. Right, that's grand there now. Bring that in a bit, and that will do. Everything's penetrating, and clone it up, and just grab some more of these, lads. And as I said, don't worry about that all that flickering, because that will be sorted out when I voxel remesh. Sorry, that's just trying to grab that one there, make it stick out a bit more. So yeah, that's fine. I might even just bring this out a bit more, leave a bit of a gap there actually, just to let that for the paint, let the wash or whatever flow in there. And that is pretty much the door done. And I suppose it'd be no harm to select all this. And I'm going to complain about this business with the selecting as well. It's just, they really need a proper way for us to tell what's selected and what isn't. Okay, if I grab that, I know that's not selected, but I'm going to see now in a second. It's just those and this. Go in close for this and this. That's all them selected. Turn off that snapping. And then I'm just going to scale last selected to inherit the gizmo, or sorry, the origin, and just scale it up that bit more. Yeah, that's pretty good. Now for these slots, I'll leave that. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Actually, I'm going to just to make it easier to select later on, I'm going to just parent this, and then I just need to select this, and then it's all parented. So it's a handy way to group things out, so you don't have to do that, keep selecting things all the time. And I suppose yeah, I'll bring this over here, turn on global, and snap her around. It seems a bit funny. That shouldn't be the distance. That's that floor up in the air. That's strange that it's bigger there in that doorway than the other one. I think we got an extra. It looks like we have an extra piece in here, do we? No. There's one of those weird 3D mysteries. Oh, we've got an extra. Something strange is going on there. Why does that happen? Kind of when you're, because you can't see what's even selected. See, look, these are all. I don't know how that happened there. Like, very strange. So let me just get rid of all these. So weird. And now I want to understand or discover the mystery of why that is happening. Why that is bigger there on that side if these are all mirror and welded. So I'll delete that. I'll try that again. Oh, you can't clone and place. So with, oh no, actually I think you can with parents, with a parented hierarchy. Oh, you can, yeah. Right, so let's try that again. Actually going to flip that instead of rotating it, because you can do that with parents as well, which is pretty cool. So X. Right, that didn't work. So sorry, what I will do instead of all that is just do this clone and across the X, apply. Yeah, it must have been, it was something to do when I rotated it around like that. It must have, I don't know, I don't know what happened, but that's the way to go there. Clone and mirror. Sometimes I brute force things and do them manually, when I should have just did it using that clone and mirror anyway. So that's the doors. For the slots then, the firing slots are slits. You know, we can just use any of these. I'll just use these. So yeah, I'll clone and place, and then I'll have to probably unparent. So back to scene mode, clone and place, drag that over, and unparent. And then why not just put that bounding box there again. And then we get get the move tool out. Turn on the snapping. And drag that down now. So that is set that to local. Try that again. Sorry, the line thing. Right, now let me see what size it is. About third the size of the door, maybe a bit more. Oops, turn around. Fucking hell, that line, sorry. Right, maybe down a bit more. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. And now we'll just create a shape for a boolean. So with that selected, scene mode, create, and then I'm just going to use the shape that I made myself here, using the way I showed you earlier on. Selection. Then I'll just snap this around, scale her down, maybe a bit more. And now you can see how handy this move technique is. Turn on Z local. Turn around. Right, why isn't Z local working there? Let me see. Local Z. Oh yeah, because I rotated around, so it's not Z anymore. It is, let me see. Oh, no, it's X, I think. Yeah. Ooh, turn the line, get that line right. And how big is that slit? Not quite that big. Maybe that size. Scale it down a bit. And then we'll use this as the boolean, so I'll just go all the way with that. And maybe before I do that, that's a bit of a crazy bit of geometry, so the boolean mightn't like that, so I will remesh, see what we get. Quite high poly. That's not too bad. And boolean, so reset our blue, select our pink operand, and subtract. Yeah, and that's pretty good. So I also want to just make that as thick as I like, and then bury it in, and then that'll be your hole. You could also make a bit of the hole in this to make it go deeper, but I'm not going to do that. It's fine. Also, now I want to grab you can also just have one of these floating in the scene over here and just keep grabbing them. So I'll also unparent that, and then make them a bit bigger maybe for this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Another thing I like to do as well, even though it mightn't make sense for rivets, but so I like to work to move. Leave that on. Oh no, turn it off because these are hand placed. Elastic. Turn that up, or maybe leave it half. I'll turn these off. Turn off the wireframe. I like to maybe it's still a bit low res to do that. Actually, I'm gonna just put the fall off up. I don't like that effect. I like to put a little bit of an indent here when I'm doing stuff for printing, because the same thing when you're painting and you put a wash in there around that, it just makes it much easier. Not much easier, but it makes it gives it a nice effect there. The wash just flows into that recess, or if you're using contrast paints, the same, just flows into the recess, and it gives a nice bit of contrast. And I would do the same with that. I usually do it on all of them, even if it's not going to make a huge amount of sense for rivets in a metal plate, but it just looks way better, and when it's painted, it looks way better as well, as I just explained. So 51, maybe go a bit higher with that. Maybe. Ah, look, that's fine, yeah, because we'll be getting, it's not going to be a big deal. Actually, it was on the wrong thing there, was I? Sometimes it's handy to keep on the wireframe. This, yeah, a little bit of it. And look as well, like it depends how much dedication you have, but it just takes a couple of seconds to do this stuff in VR. So why not? Why not? Same here. Voxel remesh. Make that a bit bigger. And as well as that, like this stuff, remember, it's tiny, so you're not going to see that as a huge big dents around the rivet. But it'll give you that nice contrast when the paint flows in. These are the kinds of things as well you sort of, when you do sculpt for print, really I advise anyone to paint as well, and also to do your own manual supports, and then it makes you kind of better at sculpting then when you paint and do manual supports, because you get a better idea of why you're doing certain things. Maybe just do that as well. You're too high for the size. And you could do it around that handle. You see, when I originally did these videos, I didn't do any of this. I usually would for myself, but I thought it might be a bit too much, taking up too much time in the video. But it's definitely something I think that's a very, very handy tip. And it also adds to the whole, just even from here, you can see how much more it adds. If you go over to this side, like it really adds a lot of depth even from here. Like, even though it's very simple thing we did. Yeah, why not? And this one, what did I do there? Oh yeah. So I'd give that a bit. Right, so now I won't bother doing this on the video, but it's just a matter of, you can just either, what I would do instead of mirror and welding these, I will just hand place all these. So I will select, I might as well do it now actually while we're here. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, parent. And now if I grab that, and then I'll just go round, and same thing again with the same philosophy. I'm just hand placing all these, and it'll give you that extra bit of variety. So I don't think, probably come back and move that. There's probably no point in putting them on the back, because that's all going to be blown out and destroyed. But you could add them in there if you wanted it. So maybe move that out a bit more. And yeah, definitely, as I said, adds to the, not believability, because it's a 40k gothic sci-fi military bunker that's going to be printed out for weird stylized people like that. But yeah, it just adds to the overall, it gets away from anything that gets away from that horrible CG kind of look. Right, so that's the back that'll be getting destroyed. Door there, 2 of them there, 1 there, door there. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And the next video will be, I suppose, the one that I recorded that I was able to salvage, and it'll show the spikes and that. But actually, sorry, before I go, because that was in part 3 that I won't be doing, is the rebar, the all important. See the rebar here? For me, rebar is one of the best things ever for these kind of terrain pieces. Stylized rebar, it really adds a lot to it, a lot of character. And yeah, so I'll create a quick piece of rebar. It takes 2 seconds to sculpt it, and I don't need any reference because I'm one of the lucky people who have actually done a lot of tie-in steel rebar and civil construction projects and in the past, and I know what rebar looks like, and I know how horrible it is to tie steel. I wasn't my job or anything, but I am, my background is um is originally trained as a carpenter, and then I did a lot of civil work with formwork, pouring concrete and all the rest, and then you tie steel as well. Do all of it, but that is my background, so kind of helps as well when you're building things, when you have a bit of a building background. But anyway, what was I going to do? Why is that so big? Oh yeah, so we'll scale that down, and same thing there. It's really easy to make stylized rebar, so I'll just grab it here, and then see, I lost my train of thought there. Scale that down, just clone it, scale it up, and remember, chunkier is always better when you're printing at these small scales. I keep going on about it, but it's so important. So yeah, I'll grab the two of these two bios, and join selected, and let me see, actual remesh 70. That's not too bad. I'm just going to turn all this stuff off here. Turn on, it's going to be X on the local X. No, maybe, no, sorry, it's not that. Let me see, where is this X? It should be, no, there it is there. Yeah, it is there. I just couldn't see it there. But I don't want it on X. I want it on, oh no, that's Z. So I want it on X. Sorry, yeah, Jesus. Yeah. Right, so get the trim, and now turn this off. Just get the trim brush and just trim. Oh yeah, I want to turn that onto that. So yeah, turn up the strength. And yeah, if you've seen the rebar, you know what the end of it looks like. Usually if you cut it as well, you go around it with the grinder and just give it an edge like that. But yeah, just to take off that again, the CG edge. Then we have our spine up the back, and then we just grab the standard brush, and let me see this one, the regular. Turn off that. Maybe turn the strength down, just see what it's like. Too bad. Turn that back on, a bit more strength. And yeah, that's pretty good there. So just add these ribs onto it, then this is all you have to do. This is how easy it is, like. And you know, it looks like rebar, stylized, all right, but it looks like rebar, and then it's going to be from a distance and whatever. So that was just the last thing I wanted to add for this video. And then once you have your rebar there, which will be placing around here and the parts of the blown out concrete, you can just create a couple of variations. So yeah, you could even create a bent part, pop that in there, just grab the move, turn off symmetry, or actually grab the carve, chop a few bits out. Yeah, and then just grab the move. Yeah, that looks good. It's, after all, it's a piece of bent rebar that has been damaged in an explosion. Grab the two of them, join them together, and probably have to go a little bit higher. As I said, when you're finished with these pieces, then you're happy with them, you can always just decimate down to keep your scene a bit lighter, because Shapelab as you get up to around 20 million, which you can easily do in scenes like this when you start doing the all the damage. It can start to chug a little bit. Not chug, sorry, that's the wrong verb to use. You can slow down with the saving and loading, and this outliner can be a bit slow to open and whatnot, but generally you can still work away. But it's just something to be aware of. So you can decimate pieces down as you finish them and are happy with them, or you could just keep the original and then just grab this, leave the original there, and then decimate this. So you always have that to go back to. You can just float things in your scene really easy in VR as well. I'm not doing much of it here, but that's what I usually do when I'm in the middle of a project. So another variation, then you could just grab the move and maybe turn down the fall off a bit on elastic, and then just do you could just do some bends like that. Still on that one. Whatever you want to do. There's no rules, but do a couple of variations, and that's pretty much it then. That's all the pieces you need, and then in the next video, as I say, I'll be starting on all the damage, and it's going to look different than this because it's slightly different, but I actually prefer this one now than the other one. And I'm half thinking, actually, all the talking I've been doing, I completely forgot about this, that we still need the boolean out the top of this. So the video's gone over an hour now, but whatever, it's a 2-second job. We just grab this, clone in place, move it up, scale it up, scale it way up, scale it up, scale it down there. Let's see where we're at. Thickness of the wall, that's not too bad, maybe a tiny bit more. Hard to see with this weird shading. Maybe bring it in here a little bit. And same again, then just grab. I wonder if the boolean tool, I never even checked actually. It probably has, you can keep, oh no you can't. I thought you had to keep the operand, but you can't. Right, so this is going to be blue, pink, subtract. Now that I'm going to bring this down. Let's copy it again. And this is going to be our main part here. So this will just go below the floor. So it doesn't matter how far down that goes. So again, boolean. And where are we going? Blue is going to be this. And then pink be this. Subtract. And then what is this? I thought I got that already. There must be 2 of them there, is there? No, that brings us down to that. Oh, we didn't go deep enough with this, sorry. So bring that down. That's kind of weird, but anyway, thought I did. Right, so boolean again. Select our blue, which will be this lad. And there we go. And it's just the corners of these now are sticking up, but that is no big deal. So I'll just select this, carve, and then just, you're never going to see that, so just trim it back till it goes inside. It's just as quick to do that as it is to go and turn on symmetry and all the rest. So it's just sticking up here. That is top of the door, I think. So you can trim that or just whatever, use the move. And another thing I forgot to mention is, depending on, let me see now, I'll just bring this lad up here. Why isn't that working? That should be resetting. Oh yeah, I have to be in this other mode, I think. No, that should be, what's even selected here? Oh yeah. Right, so that's the rotation reset. Sorry, my mistake. Weird. Now, how is that looking for height? Perfect, yeah, waist height just above. And don't need this anymore. And what was I saying? Oh, yeah. Depending on what way you want to do it, like, you're never going to see these two doors at the same time. You're never going to see these two sides at the same time. The back's going to be destroyed, so it's going to be unique. These two you're going to see. These two you're going to see. So it depends what way you want to do it. You know, if you want to use symmetry for these or mirror and weld after you damage one. Personally, it's so fast to do it in VR that I will just go around and just do it all. Just do all the damage uniquely rather than using symmetry because it's just so fast to do. But so that's just another thing to bear in mind. Sorry, last thing to do is I forgot. Yeah, the base. I'm just going to pop in a new base. So delete that one. We're in scene mode. Create and reset this, and then just put a decent size, maybe about 85-ish, around 80 or whatever. Scene origin. Zoom in there. And then just scale it out. Sorry, after making that same mistake that I made on the other piece. You can't just do that. Scale it out. I'm so used to Substance Modeler. But anyway, so back to move. Square, no fall off, default off, snapping, line constraint, and symmetry as well. Just drag that out to wherever you want. Bit further maybe. And turn on the Z sim. Sorry, this this line won't. Okay, well, sorry, I had that on by mistake. Now, where are we here? Drag that out. And just to give us that curve around the base. Now, the way I look at this, I think I mentioned it in the other video. I just thicken this up a bit for sculpting, so you're not sculpting on the backside, and then at the end, then this will be mounded up. So we'll have it thin down here, like, and then I'll mound. This will all be mounded up, sort of like it is there. So I can't remember if I mentioned that in the next video, the last one in the series. So yeah, that's pretty much it then. And one other thing I don't think I mentioned in the other video is you can make two versions of this for print. When this is all mounded up, I do mention this, where you can use this as a boolean operand to cut out from underneath this, so this will perfectly fit onto the base when it's printed. Or you can just take a flat base and just, if you want to just have this sitting on the battlefield tabletop without the base underneath it, then you just, when it's all finished, you just replace the base with just a flat piece like this and chop through the whole lot with the rubble, the debris and the whole lot, and then just use that as a flat piece to just put on a piece of flat terrain. Right, so well, that is it then, and yeah, that's the end of this one. Cheers, thanks, Philip.